Okay, we're on investigation 4 and we're going to review proportions. I know from other years that you have gotten been introduced to proportions in 6th grade, but I think it's a really good idea to make sure we go over and make sure that we all are understanding it in the same way. So a proportion is two equivalent ratios and they're set up to be equal to each other. Okay, so a thing that you're really going to need to remember is that labels are important. They're really, 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 really important. Okay, so let's just look at this. On the left, they have, and these are the ratios. This is the proportion section from your book, but I'm taking it separately. I didn't want to put the page. I want to actually have more space to work. So the first ratio, the proportion they talk about is 1/4 is equal to x over 128. So 1/4 is equal to x over 128. And a great way to use proportions, one of the really great advantages to them is they help us solve for a missing number. So there are several ways to do this. But in this video, I am only going to explain the scaling up way. You may have already figured out different ways, but we're just going to do the scaling up way. Okay, strategy. So here's what we have. I know that 128 has to be the same times bigger. It has to go up by the same amount. I have to scale that up by the same amount that I'm scaling the top up, right? Because if I have equivalent fractions, which you've been doing forever, you know that if you have something like 1/2 and you need to figure out how many eighths it is, you're going to multiply times 4. Or if you have 1/3 and you want to figure out how many ninths you have, okay, you're going to multiply by 3 and get 3/9. So you've been doing equivalent fractions forever. And that is a prerequisite or something you need to have mastered before you go to proportions. And proportion takes it to a little bit different level. Okay, so here I know that 4 times 32 equals 128. Again, I can use my calculator, I can divide, but I can figure that out. Okay, which means that if I multiply the bottom by 32, I have to multiply the top by 32. Okay, that means that x equals 32. So I could rewrite this proportion as 1/4 equals 32 over 128, and those would be two equivalent fractions. Okay, so there I have equivalency there. And that is what a proportion is. It means the numerator and the denominator of both sides are proportionally increased or decreased. Okay, the next thing they talk about, and this is really where the labels come in, like super, super important, okay, is in this. They're talking about American doctors, and for every 12 men doctors in America, there are 5 women doctors. So men doctors absolutely outnumber the women doctors, although we are coming on strong. Okay, so when I'm going to make a proportion, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say I need 2 equal ratios, and I'm going to do this 4 ways. So I'm going to show you, here's going to be a ratio, and I'm going to equal another ratio. And I'm going to have a ratio, and I'm going to equal another ratio. And I'm going to have a ratio, and I'm going to equal another ratio, right? So do you see how this is? Kind of line equals line. So I'm setting that up even beforehand. I know, and of course you wouldn't have to do 4, but I'm going to show you 4 different ways. You're getting that, this is how this works. Okay, so the ratio of men to women is 12:5. And they're saying that there are 600,000 men. Okay, 600,000 men. So I'm going to use the ratio they give me, and I'm going to do it I'm going to do it in the order they said. So they have 12 men, okay, to 5 women. Okay? So that's women and men. And I'm just going to use one letter for a label. Then they say there are 600,000 men in America at the time of the writing of this text, okay? I mean, who knows, there may be more or less, but so that's also men. Okay, so I notice, okay, that my men are across from each other, which means right down here is going to have to be women. Okay, so that women are going to be across from each other. Okay, so I've linked up the men and I've linked up the women. Now, I could flip that and I would be fine. So I could write it like this. I could write 5 women. Okay, and so I'm linking up the women here. And then I can write 12 men. And then I could have 600,000 men down here. Okay, so either way, it doesn't make a difference as long as I can link up here. So I have here is the ratio. Okay, up and down, and here I have the ratio up and down. Okay, a little bit creepily writing there. But that's 2 ways, okay, that I can write that proportion. Now, another way I can write the proportion is I can take the ratio and I could write it across from each other on the top. Okay, and I know this gives you a lot of choices, but sometimes the way you set up the ratio just makes it so gosh darn more easy to find the answer. Okay, so let's do the ratio here. So I'm going to start with I have 12 men, okay? And now remember I'm going across, so I have 5 women. Okay? Now that's my ratio. Okay? I could also do 5 women to 12 men. Okay, so I'm keeping the ratio across from each other. So it's across. There's the ratio. It's across. Okay. Now I have that 600,000 men. So where would that go? Well, that would match with the men, right? So here we go, 600,000 men up and down from each other. Okay. 600,000 men up and down from each other. Okay. And then, of course, whatever that number, the amount of women I'm trying to figure out, that's also linked to each other. They're linked to each other, okay? They're up and down. So here's the thing. You notice that there is not one diagonal line here, okay? Nothing is diagonally across from each other. They're up and down, okay? They're up and down, or they're across. And so that is what you have to remember. You have to remember when you do the labels, you need to make sure they're either across from each other or up and down. And you need to make sure that that ratio is matching. One more thing, we talked about, I said, the way you set it up is easier, and you're going to see that when you start the problems that you're going to do on the next page. But I would much rather figure out what I'm multiplying 12 by here to right here, what I'm multiplying 12 by to get 600,000 than I would to figure out what I have to divide 12 by to get 5 over here. So sometimes the way you set it up is going to help you be able to more easily calculate what your answer is. So once I figure out how many times 12 goes into 600,000, I can multiply that by 5 at the bottom, because whatever I'm multiplying on the top, I need to multiply by the bottom. Okay, good job. Now I want you to try the problems on the following page.